Joe. Now, going over to the political part podcast, you have Tucker Carlson on Ukraine killing journalists and about to get another $60 billion from the United States. $60 billion. Although we can't really, there's a myriad of issues in the United States. I can't help but see this budget. The bill has $20 billion going to the U.S. border protection, which is not building a wall or anything. It seems to be mostly administrative support, so hiring more people to help process people coming here illegally. But that's $20 billion for U.S. And then you have $60 billion going to Ukraine. And I believe they got about $200 billion between not just cash, but also arms and armaments, healthcare materials. The U.S. is investing heavily into that country. It'll be interesting to see what the outcome is. Now, Tucker says, quote, and I'll probably play the first minute or two of the video. It's obviously a lot longer. Now, he says, quote, episode 74, the Ukrainian government canceled elections and killed an American journalist. Congress is about to send them another $60 billion. J.D. Vance is trying to stop it. So it looks like there is still one or two people in D.C. who actually is aware of perhaps some modicum of fiscal responsibility or, putting America somewhere on the list of priorities where it seems to be left off more often than not. So we'll go ahead and play this play the first minute or two.
It became very clear to anyone paying attention several months ago that Ukraine cannot win its war against Russia. The Ukrainian military will not be able, even with Western backing, hundreds of billions of dollars of it, to expel the Russian military from parts of eastern Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have the industrial capacity, neither does NATO or the United States, and it doesn't have the people. Russia has 100 million more in population than Ukraine does. And that means that further support from the West for the Ukrainian military only means more dead Ukrainians and a further degraded Western economy in the US and in Germany particularly. So it's not simply a fool's errand, it's self-destruction. It's insane, it's cruel, it's abetting the killing of an entire generation of Ukrainians. This is very obvious. No honest person at this point will deny it. And yet somehow the United States Senate, which is always several years behind reality in its perceptions, just a few weeks ago, decided to send another $60 billion to the Ukrainian government, which is both corrupt and authoritarian. They've canceled elections, they banned an entire Christian denomination, and then they killed an American journalist for noting any of this. And yet, the United States Senate proposed, under Mitch McConnell, a plan to send another $60 billion to Ukraine. Well, imagine the surprise of all rational people around the world to wake up this morning and discover this could actually happen. And so with that in mind, we thought it'd be worth talking to one of the very few Republican senators who's bothered to make the counter case. And that would be J.D. Vance of Ohio, who joins us now from the United States. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. If you wouldn't mind telling us where this legislation is right now, what you expect to happen, and what you think should happen.
Yeah, Tucker, so there are two big things that will happen here. So tonight we will clear a major procedural vote, or we won't. So this is really the best opportunity tonight to kill this legislation. Encourage everybody to do everything that they can, contact everyone they can to ensure that we actually do kill the legislation. It is very close. The Democrats have banded together with 17 Republicans. We only need 8 of those Republicans to flip their vote to kill this thing, and I think that we'll get at least one who will in fact flip their vote. So that's where it sits in the Senate. The second thing, and frankly the best opportunity we have to kill this, is in the House. And that's part of what I'm trying to do, is notify people about how bad this legislation is, so that after it clears the Senate, if it does, then it goes to the House, and the House has a real opportunity to at least make it better, but hopefully kill it. And I want to say just a couple of things here, Tucker, that are extremely important to know about this legislation. Number one is that it sends $61 billion to Ukraine to fund, as you said, a hopeless war in Eastern Europe that will decimate the Ukrainian population even more than it's already been decimated. So it's a terrible, terrible piece of legislation on the policy. The second thing I want to say, Tucker, though, is that it doesn't just fund Ukraine in 2024. And this is the most important point. It actually funds Ukraine in 25 and 26. Now, what's the problem with that? Say, for example, that we have a new president in 2025. That president would be handcuffed by the promises that we are making in law to Ukraine today. If you go back to 2019, Tucker, to try to give you a sense of why this matters, In 2019, the U.S. House impeached then President Donald Trump on the theory that they had appropriated money to Ukraine and Donald Trump refused to send it to Ukraine. So if Trump is elected president again and become president on January of 2025, he will conduct diplomacy. And if that diplomacy does not include sending additional billions to Ukraine, there is a theoretical argument, a predicate, if you will, for impeaching Donald Trump because they have tried to tie his hands. And the final point I'll make on this, Tucker, is that the Washington Post has already said, based on leaks from inside the intel community, the purpose of this legislation is to tie a future President Trump's hands. We're not just sending billions to Ukraine in 2024. We're trying to make it impossible for the next president to conduct diplomacy on his terms. It's anti-democratic, and it will lead to endless war all over the world.
Wow. So they're being funded for multiple years and being locked in almost like a 3-year contract. It's almost like a phone contract back in the day where you're locked in for 12, 24, 36 months. And as youth might say, this went viral to say the least. Earlier this week, within 24 hours, it got 19.2 million views and 122,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. And again, I can't help but think that's a astronomical amount of capital being quote unquote invested in that country. But perhaps I'm alone in this assessment. Maybe every American truly believes it's in our best national interest, and that's a great way to go send money over there. I mean, I kind of doubt that, but let's go in the comments and find out. Well, the first one comes from, again, Paul Zazupa. He says, quote, Ukraine is not a democracy, yet Democrat politicians continue to say it's a democracy. Why? Because they're liars. The truth is often simple. Democrat politicians lie in order to promote war and profit off it. Unquote, getting 2.2 thousand likes. Luke Zaleski, our favorite leftist, well, not really favorite, I do follow him on the X Twitter, partially to ensure we get more diversity of thought and get some extra opinions that we might not normally see at the top of the results on X Twitter, since there's already going to be inherited confirmation bias or a little bit of bias of people who already follow Tucker Carlson, probably more likely to agree with him, as most people would if you're following someone on the left. More often than not, the audience that's going to be. So, nevertheless, Luke says, quote, oh, geez Louise. He almost wrote a book. Now, that being said, some people did like it, so I will attempt to read it. Grammar be damned if he does have some grammar issues. So Luke Zaleski says, quote, the world's longest continual propaganda dump and disinformation campaign continues and enters as a new phase for 2024, in which the biggest brainwashing machine in human history will decimate millions of hours of microclips of counter-truth to convince you a pandemic was an op by a secret conspiracy of people who rule the world and are just trying to make it look like Vladimir Putin attacked Ukraine and Trump had the election stolen from him and was justified in attacking the Capitol and inciting insurrection, which didn't happen unless Nancy and the FBI did it, but also the attackers are heroes who should be pardoned. And the one solution is to install Trump again, a failure as a president who presided over the greatest national security disaster in U.S. history after taking power with Putin's help, because Putin said so to the guy who was even too toxic for Fox and cost the network $250 million for lying about the election Trump lost, which, of course, just a giant pandemic plot against him to force Putin to murder his European neighbors because Joe made him do it, unquote. Now, mentally vacuous to say the least, and I won't say abomination against the idea of grammar in and of itself. A lot of those are run-on sentences, and of course he didn't even end the tweet with a period, as you should. Let's just say I don't think Luke is the kind of guy who suits up, as all men obviously should by default, and there's so many inaccuracies in there. But now that being said, 199 people did like this, so he was not alone in that specific assessment. Let me see here. I'm trying to break down what he just said. Brainwashing machine. And again, Trump only won by less than 100,000 votes. It was a really close race in 2016. I think a lot of people will also attribute it to Hillary Clinton just not being a popular or not really a candidate that can get votes. It's really not that attractive in terms of her policies or in general. Now, I should say for the record, I appreciate life and want to live it to the fullest, for the record. Just want to put that out there. and I'm sure Hillary Clinton is a very honest, good person. Anyway, now going back to other comments, scrolling down, we see Dave Benner. He says, quote, "The establishment says the notion that Putin invaded Ukraine over NATO expansion is merely a conspiracy theory, but it's exactly what NATO's own general secretary admitted," unquote. It looks like there's a couple-minute interview with the general secretary that got 1.9 thousand likes. Libercrat Media TM says, quote, "No truer words have been said," and is a caricature of the juxtaposition of two pictures from Jim from The Office, where he's pointing at the whiteboard, and the whiteboard says, quote, "Everything horrible that they said would happen to you under Orange Man actually happened under Pedo Man." Quote, get 1.8 thousand likes, which is quite a few to say the least. Let's see. Big Fish says, quote, "We need more JDs in the Senate and less Mitts and Mitches stabbing us in the back." And quote, getting 1.4 thousand likes. And truth be told, I have no idea how Mitch McConnell still has a job when, again, he seems to have dementia. He's many times in the camera, he just brain just shuts off. Now, again, some people get nervous. I mean, truth be told, you watch my show, I misspeak many times. But there is a notable difference between someone who's having a mental decline. And again, we seem to be observing that more and more in politics. And it's not just the left, it's also the right. Mitch McConnell, well, allegedly is Republican, I would argue. You know, where is his allegiance truly sometimes when you see how he casts his vote and what his actions are. But nevertheless, claims to be Republican. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see how long does he have that job still. Scrolling down here, Marjorie Taylor Greene press release parody account says, quote, "I would trust Putin before I trust the Ukrainian government." I got 3.4 thousand likes. Dave Benner also says, "All aid to Ukraine must be terminated. NATO expansion is killing us." I'm getting 997 likes. Now, interestingly enough, the U.S. pays more into NATO than any other country. So they're paying a lot of money into it. We are. Well, I say they. Our tax dollars are going to that. And the big question is, what do we get from that investment? An interesting question. Now, let's see here. Eddie says money laundering 101 is a picture of... It's a picture of the Ukrainian dictator or president, Zelensky, shaking Biden's hand. And perhaps one of the biggest insults, Zelensky didn't even suit up. As all men should. We're giving them billions of dollars, and he's wearing the same lazy sweater where he pretends like he's in combat. And in one of these pictures, he's wearing a T-shirt. Again, some people might call me an old soul for thinking all men should always suit up and men always look best in a suit. We have to. If you're giving someone hundreds of billions of dollars, isn't that worth suiting up? Maybe taking a shower. That's astonishing, ridiculous. That did get 997 likes. Let's see here.
And the consequences of the...
Well, let's see. Tara Bull says, quote, "Ukraine is a money laundering scheme." That got 4.1 thousand likes. Let's see. Orion says, quote, "This is how you lose purchasing power by creating inflation. Printing new money into existence and sending it overseas definitely doesn't help any. Foreign aid is money laundering by proxy," unquote. And geez Louise, it shows U.S. foreign citizens and say a little graph of the whole world, or I guess not a graph, say a picture of the whole world, and you see where all the money is going, and you see all the bills racking up exponentially, and it is quite a bit, to say the least. Now, that did get 115 likes. A couple people saying, no more, no more, stop it. Getting between 300 and 500 likes. Let's see here. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, again, anecdotally speaking, I still see a lot of people on LinkedIn and Facebook where they do have the Ukrainian flag on their profile. Kind of hilarious because those same people never had an American flag on their profile. But there are a lot of people in the United States who still believe it's in the United States' best interest to keep funding it. So there's still some public support. I mean, perhaps it's a confirmation bias where the information that I'm seeing more and more is that there's more people wanting to decrease or cut off that support. It'll be interesting to see if folks in DC really care about the public opinion, and do we get to that tipping point where a majority of Americans say, stop sending them money, or enough is enough, it's not in our best interest, what are we getting out of this? And I do think Tucker is having a positive impact on that particular viewpoint, especially when he interviewed Putin. So let me know in the comments, do you think we've sent them enough? Again, it's about $200 billion now between cash and physical resources over the past couple of years, with zero accountability and money disappearing left and right. But let me know, do you think we should increase the investment, decrease the investment, or stop altogether? As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of February, so click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, sharing the video is a great way to help us build the audience, and giving a like or thumbs up or thumbs down or comment, great way to give me some additional feedback. Also, lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.